Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturning. I tend to like a good dose of segmented turning in my projects. Segmented turning like this one, you get nice shapes, nice all side grain, no end grained issues, and it has a certain economy of wood. Now, a lot of segmented turnings that you may see have a very, very ornate feature ring, but I also like simple feature rings, like just a plain band of walnut in this one. So let's make a segmented candy dish. Now, for candy dishes, they have a special bonus because when you're done, you can eat one.
After cutting my segments from cherry at a miter angle of 22.5 degrees, I glued them up into half rings. This gives me a chance to true up the rings so that there are no gaps between segments. To true them up, I need to sand the flat side of the half segment. I'm on location again, and my sander is at home, so I'm using the 10-inch sanding disc I made in my mobile sharpening video. However, I've had trouble sanding my half rings flat on this disc. After some frustration, I made a simple table to set on my lathe's bedways. Even though I haven't fastened it down, it's a great help while flattening one side. Then with the flat side on the table, I'm able to sand the face flat, just like at home. After the glue dried from the half rings, I again use the sanding disc to flatten at least one side of each ring. I'd prefer my thickness sander, but it's at home also. I'll true up the other side as I glue each ring onto my workpiece. No dust collection on location, so I'm wearing a dust mask. Then with my first ring fastened to a threaded wood faceplate with hot melt glue, I'm going to inset a smaller ring. This will be the lid. I want it very flat. First, I'll use my straight carbide cutter to face off the rough side of the ring, then cut out a mortise, being very careful to get the sides perfectly parallel. The long stick sighted to the lathe bed gauges how parallel the sides are. Then switch over to another faceplate with a smaller ring. This will become, in effect, the tenon. I'm transferring the mortise measure to the tenon to gauge a rough cut. Fitting is a repetitive series of cut and test, cut and test. Every time I go for it with any gusto, I overcut. So I'll do this in very small bites. After fitting the tenon to the mortise, I'll glue it in place. Now the same process for the bottom of the main container. I want a larger flat bottom for this one, so I'll inset a smaller ring into a larger ring to form the bottom, just like the lid. Cut the mortise, then fit the small ring or tenon to the mortise. Now I can start building my container. I'll trim the bottom ring just a little, face it off and glue on the next ring. For this ring, I'll trim the first two rings a little, hollow out the middle a little, and face off the top surface, then glue on the next ring. Again, trim a little, hollow a little, and face off the top surface, then glue on the next ring. Again, trim a little, hollow a little, and face off the top surface. Then glue on the next ring. This time it's walnut for a very simple feature ring. Again, trim a little, hollow a little, and face off the top surface. Then glue on the final ring. After the glue dries, I'll do some rough trim before switching over to do the lid. I want to shape the lid first so I know what I have to deal with for the container portion. I want a fairly flat lid. I'll dish out the bottom just a little bit and cut a mortise that I can use to reverse mount the lid and finish this side of the lid. I decided to reverse everything into the expansion hold instead of scraping off the hot melt glue that is holding the lid to the faceplate, figuring to cut away the hot melt glue. However, this did not work as well as I had hoped. With the heat of the tool, some glue melted under the edge, making it difficult to separate from the faceplate. With the faceplate out of the way, I'll finish shaping the lid. A freehand ogee type cut will do nicely. I'll use my gouge here. Finally, a bit of shear scraping before I start sanding. With no end grain tear out, this goes nicely. With the lid finished, I'll transfer its size over to the container. My first job here will be to cut a mortise that can serve to hold the lid and as a reverse mount possibility. Then clean up the interior. For deep cuts, I'm switching to a round carbide cutter. Whoops! I had used some MDF on this faceplate. It has split through the MDF. My lesson learned: don't use MDF on small diameter faceplates. Now to begin the salvage operation. Fortunately, I have the mortise that I just cut at the top of the container. I just did not want to have to use it yet. I'll reverse mount the container in an expansion hold, then clean off the remnants of the faceplate from the bottom of the container. While I'm here, I'll cut a new mortise on the bottom that I can use to again reverse mount the container so that I can complete the interior. I'll sand and finish this now while I have access. This leaves the center where there's a gap between the segment points in the ring. I've turned a small plug from walnut that I'll glue in here. It has a very low profile to not interfere with how the bowl sets on its bottom. Now I've remounted the bowl and my chuck in an expansion hold. It's time to finish the interior after a little cleanup of the damage from the MDF failure. I'll continue the interior with a round carbide cutter. With the interior complete, I've turned a plug to fit the opening and brought up the tailstock for a bit more security while I tool the exterior. It's time to sand and finish the container portion. I'll go through the grits up to 400 grit and just a little more tooling around the lid opening. I don't want a tight lid in a deep mortise. I'm rounding off the corner of the mortise and expanding the corner just a little bit. Finally, I'll turn a small knob for the lid. I don't want a fancy finial because it could detract from the overall look of the container. Let's keep it simple. And voila! With just a little bit of a hard knock, I have a nice candy jar. I'll fill it with kisses and, well, actually have it around for Valentine's Day. This is Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns. Be sure to wear your face mask whenever you're turning. And we'll see you next time on the next video. Meanwhile, please subscribe